Howdy, Ausgrave royalty here. I am Justin. Another random video topic from yours truly. Sometimes I crack myself up with what creeps into my mind and somehow makes it into a video topic. As you can see from the title, this is going to be about a thought I had about personality tests and the new age. And particularly some sympathy I've been having for those disciplines, so to speak, lately. They get a really bad rap for being, well, let's just say, not evidence-based. And yeah, I just had some thoughts about that. I'm sure I'm not the first person who's ever had these thoughts, but let me know in the comments if y'all have ever considered this or if I'm just dead wrong. It's kind of a nuanced topic, so I took a lot of notes, so I'm going to be reading my notes a lot just so I can be clear. But yeah, I haven't been able to get this thought out of my head, and I just wanted to explore it with y'all. This is the reason I made this video. So let's get into it. Yeah, I'm fully aware that by covering books on psychology, I'm putting myself in like a esoteric camp, like psychology. I think Molyneux had a good presentation about how a lot of research proved to have faulty testing methods. So it's basically most psychological literature is irrelevant or needs to be retested. And not all of it, but I'll link that video below if I can find it. But also, like, I think it was in Anchorman 2. Patricia Arquette, was that the lady anchor? Actress, I'm not sure, but I think like she had a new husband or boyfriend after the hooking up with like Will Ferrell in the first one, and he was a psychologist, and Will Ferrell's like, "Ooh, can you read my mind?" And there's this whole joke about him being able to like use telepathy and stuff, basically mocking what a psychologist is, and also mocking, Ron Burgundy and all that, and so it's, But in the end, like he actually can control stuff because he's a psychologist. Anyway, there's a reputation like that psychology has that whether it's useful at all. Some people don't really believe in talk therapy. Some people swear by it. Maybe there's a placebo effect. There's just a lot of the jury's still out, and I don't think we've fully agreed upon whether it's legitimate or not yet. But I think psychology is gaining ground, but it's an uphill battle, and it's becoming more uphill as the years go on, from what I see. Let me know what y'all perceive below. But especially with Carl Jung, he's like really, really out there, and we talk about archetypes, and the hell are archetypes, when the common person thinks of the word archetype, there's no tangible image that comes to mind, right? So if it's not concrete, it must kind of be invalid. So a certain practical mindset goes. I think like the rewards of psychology and like self-exploration are extremely vague. Like I was thinking, imagine if it was common knowledge that you could gain the ability for super strength or like being able to fly through the air as a human. If you made the unconscious conscious and you were more self-aware, I wonder if people would take psychology more seriously. I would say so. I just think like because the rewards are so vague, it's like, oh, I'm a better person. I have self-knowledge. It doesn't really mean anything to anybody else. They have nothing to compare it to, nothing to measure. I mean, they're just taking your word for it. And frankly, you could be biased. And I'm not even a cynical person, and I would have that thought. So people who are like saying that they're on that kind of self journey or whatever, they must be kind of impractical and wasting their time to a certain extent, at least from their perspective. Seems it just seems like they're LARPing, and devoted religious people may be in this category as well. Like, oh, they're into the God thing. I mean, they have a relationship, okay, with God, whatever that means. And then also throw in here palm readers, tarot card readers, psychics, I Ching, horoscope people. Oh yeah, they're making these claims that aren't concrete in front of me. Therefore, does it really matter? I don't know. It's very, very materialistic, very, very practical, maybe too practical. And I was thinking I would even throw in like personality tests into this perspective, like the Enneagram, Myers-Briggs, Big Five. I don't know. I don't think people take that very seriously. There'd be like way more consideration about that, like before marriages or getting hired as an employee or all that. I mean, they're fun to pass around like social media. Like, what Hogwarts house would you be sorted to? I mean, it might as well be palm reading. And if you're one of those people that's putting scholarly effort into like getting a thorough knowledge of these things, it's kind of like being a high-level mage in Dungeons and Dragons, like being a certified Enneagram typer or something like that. It doesn't really make sense from the practical, materialistic, common sense, potentially lazy, I don't know, mindset. So I was thinking about all this and like what drives people to all this. Is it a kind of temporary insanity? Is it a default? It's is it a bug in the programming? And I was just thinking about all this, and I think the realization I had was that maybe what the materialistic perspective is missing is a respect for projection. And projection has a negative connotation whereby you're projecting your like inner states onto an external object or person, and then you're kind of like getting in your own way, but unconsciously. And Jung said that, well, if you fail to make the unconscious conscious, you're going to act unconsciously out in the world, and then you'll call it fate. I love that quote, and it reminds me of the power of projection and how like it's almost inescapable. And this, my background is in philosophy, and a big metaphysical point of contention is the validity of the external world. So you have people, hardcore materialists like Ayn Rand. I mean, her philosophy was called objectivism, as in the primacy of objective reality. And opposed to her is Plato. And Plato was like, well, yeah, I mean, we touch and feel, we think we interact with reality, but none of this is actually the real stuff. The real stuff is in the realm of the forms, and all of what we see and encounter are just poor facsimiles of the real. things, like the perfect triangle or the perfect table or the perfect cheeseburger. And if it's in this world, it is imperfect because it's the idea of the thing that's the more real, that's the more perfect. And Immanuel Kant also with his noumenal realm, that we can never know the true nature of the world, of objects in the world, because they possess a thingness, a thing in itself, that we can never, that there's something outside of what our senses can grasp about the thing, like an essence. We don't have a sense for detecting essences of things. So therefore, because the essence is the most real thing about the object, then we're in almost like a dream world. And if that's the case, then some would say we can never really know anything, because knowledge, to the extent that knowledge is derived from sensory exposure and sensory information, if our senses aren't enough to grasp the reality of things, then we can never really know anything. We can believe things, but they say in philosophy that knowledge is justified true belief. I think that's the conventional definition. And if the senses are no longer a justification, then that roots out part of the definition of what real knowledge is. And then this is why I love philosophy, because everything builds on one another. Because if we can't really have knowledge, then we can't have ethics, because we can't know any moral rules. So it's like that's nihilism, I guess, because it's not even subjective, because you can't even know your own preferences, technically. So yeah, I mean, if you can't really know anything, right and wrong is out the window. That was a rant. What I was thinking though is that I'm looking at my notes here. Yeah, I was thinking that personality tests and new age stuff, like, it's all about projection and thus has some value. Okay, so I need to unpack this. Like, it's like the Matrix, right? Is there, from somebody in the Matrix, from their perspective, is it valuable to learn the rules of that world? Like, I don't walk in traffic or any of that. Even though it's not the real world, is that valuable to that person? I would say it is. From their perspective, it definitely is. And since we're all pitiful human beings with very little, like, cosmic awareness, like, we live our lives perpetually with partial understanding, and we at most we can hope to fail upwards. We make mistakes, and maybe we learn the wrong lessons, but we have a good life, or we learn. Who's to say what the right or wrong lessons are from our experiences? And this is what projection is. It's drawing conclusions with potentially dubious basis about the world around you, kind of sourced from your own insecurities and unprocessed stuff. And in a way, if that's true, which I think it largely is, then our lives are kind of like a perpetual haunting of our invisible demons. Like, we're always projecting. And if we're always projecting, then we're perpetually in a conflict with our unprocessed shit, no matter what we're doing in the world. Because we're dumping it, we're projecting it and we're framing all of our experiences in a very biased but human way that we can't help but do if this projection theory is as potent as it might be. It's like all of reality is a Dementor, to use like the Hogwarts thing. It's that demon that doesn't, it has a form of its own, but whenever it's being viewed, it takes the shape of something based on the victim's internal state, right? That's what projection is, really. And I put this in my notes, and I don't want to forget to say it, but think about the, God, I don't typically like horror movies, although that's kind of changing recently, different story. But what really scares me, you want to get freaked out, look up the split screen experiment in physics, waves versus particles at a quantum level. So they fire these electrons at this like board that picks up electrons, whatever, science, whatever. And when they do that, it forms a pattern. Okay, fine. When it's observed, but the moment they stop observing it, the pattern changes. But it's firing the exact same way. But now, instead of at one point it was waves, now it's become particles, or vice versa, based on whether it's being observed. What the hell is that about? This is not Game of Thrones. This is not The Matrix. This is the world we live in. Even reality itself is being transformed by us viewing it. Even, this is some creepy shit, but even if a camera is recording it, I don't know. I'm not a physicist. I'll link the video below. It reminds me of like the Jurassic Park, like Dino DNA. It's a well done, succinct, but incredibly creepy video. So I'll try and link it below if I can find it. But it's almost as if like projection is built into the metaphysics of actual reality. Even though I know a little bit about the quantum world in the sense that it may not be even worthwhile discussing this because all quantum equations, by the time they're concretized or whatever, in reality, things aren't popping in and out of existence like quarks and stuff. All that's been kind of solidified, but only kinda, I think. And then there's like quantum entanglement and things popping in and out of existence at the particle level. Yeah, I mean, I'm not making this up. You can look into it. I also thought of the Kobayashi Maru. Nerd alert here. I'm not a Trekkie, but I at least am aware of what this is. It's the impossible test from Star Trek, and it's not meant to be accomplished. It's meant to create a circumstance where pilots face death and how they transform as a result. Basically, it's all about increased awareness. It's all about dealing with your projection. And yeah, I mean, it is a real, from the captain's perspective in the Kobayashi Maru, it is like real. They're dealing with real death as a potential consequence, but that is supposed to cook, using the alchemical term. It's supposed to cook the individual and transform them into a more aware and thus more capable captain to be able to perform under those kinds of circumstances. They learn about themselves. And again, it's not about any kind of, there's like, the only way to get that knowledge is to go through the test. You might say like, well, what evidence is there? Isn't one way of dealing with that circumstance superior to any other? It's an open question. I mean, this is what the common sense, I think, materialist perspective would say. Like, who cares? Just teach me how to do the damn thing. What doesn't matter how I react or whatever. But it's recognized that self-knowledge is a valid thing, at least in Star Trek. And um, I'm really steel manning or attempting to steel man the materialist perspective that this is all not self-knowledge is nonsense. I mean, you just learn the techniques. You don't have to know yourself, you know. But anyway, I just thought that was interesting. So, and whether it be, so imagine like, some individual calls you charismatic because that's what the cards revealed. That's what the palm reader says. Your charisma line. They say you're very charismatic according to fill in dubious evidence. It could be the Myers-Briggs, could be the Big Five, could be the crystals, could be the runes. Doesn't matter. So pay attention to the moment you read that, you intake that. It's almost like an accusation, that input about the feedback about yourself, right? And you have some feeling about it. Maybe you're feeling flattered, relieved, or shocked, or and then you snap yourself out of it and go, oh, I'm being palm read. Why am I even giving this any credence, you know? But I'm thinking like, maybe that's an opportunity. Hear me out. So it's either true or false, like the assertion, even objectively. It could be, you know, from a God's eye perspective, which we would never have. It's either you're either potentially charismatic or you're not. This has all kinds of faults, but just go with me for the quick example. If you think that it's true, you've conjured up some story in your mind about why it's true. You've conjured up evidence in the past that how people respond to you, right? Or you think it's false, and in the same way, you conjured up a story and cited the evidence and, you know, whatever. In that moment, though, there's been a moment where you've had to look inward and inventory your inner resources and your interpretations of the past and come to some sort of evaluation. And if you're evaluating, you have a subconscious set of standards because you're interpreting the story, your own stories based on your own inner principles. Ayn Rand called this a psychoepistemology. It's one's own inner, potentially subconscious commandments. It's like the shape and the cut of my lenses in my glasses. They're cut a certain way so that I can perceive reality in a desired way. And each cut, each groove is like one inner primacy of my psyche, so to speak. Except the lens is how you view society and the world and others and all that. So I'm saying that whether the tarot cards, the Big Five, are true or false is irrelevant. The point is paying attention to what kinds of thoughts and feelings you're having when those assertions about your nature are presented to you. It's all about your own projection onto the medium at hand. And you're projecting your image into the external world next to the test results or the reading or whatever. And it's at that moment your ego begins the left brain rational evaluation. Basically, you're citing evidence after the fact of the story you've already concluded. It's kind of like you make up your mind first and then come up with the evidence as to why. And we see this in online arguments all the time. And Stefan Molyneux has a good series called The Bomb in the Brain about just this sort of thing. So I want to tell you about my friend and I. We came up with this brilliant trick, right? So let's say you can't decide whether you want a pizza or a burger for dinner, right? I'll just go up to my friend, hold out my fists, and say, pick one. And in my mind, I've assigned pizza to this one and burger to this one. And I ask my friend to pick one. And doesn't this sound like some sort of mystical nonsense? The point is, when my friend picks one, my brain can't help, even for the briefest of moments, to play out a scenario where I eat what my friend has chosen. And if I'm paying enough attention, I can get a read on how I feel about that. I'm either endeared to that outcome with a feeling of excitement or not. Either way, I win. If I like it, if I like what I'm feeling when that's chosen, I'll go. If I don't, it means I'll go with the other option. As a result of having pried it out of me. And the result is that what I really wanted deep down, but was having logical trouble accessing, was ripped out of me via this neat trick. And this is not sophisticated. It's binary. And you can sometimes, even today, we invented this years ago, but even today, my friend will text me, "Hey man, A, B, or C," and I'll say B, and he'll go, "Thanks, man." And then like a week later, he'll be like, "By the way, I was trying to do, X, Y, or Z." I'm like, "Oh, okay, that's cool." But the trick is that the point is not to go with what they choose, right? The point is to really know your feelings about a thing when the possibilities are closed. And it's like Schrodinger's meal, right? Is it pizza or is it burger? Until it's chosen, it's kind of both, or it's neither at all, right? Schrodinger's choice. And you can flip a coin, you can do whatever. It's my my thought about all this is that like the I Ching, crystals, runes, personality tests, they're all exactly like this, right? They're all exactly like my A or B, like making a fist thing. But it's brought to it. You could interpret it like that, but just a way more sophisticated level. And I think like maybe tarot and all this stuff, the objective truth, if you're like, oh, tarot is bullshit because it's not objectively true, well, you're missing the point. The point is not to assert an objective claim. The point is to go into your soul and grant you a moment where you can do some self-reflection. And would you really, this is where the idea leads, right? The really like blowing your mind, like bake your noodle part of this is when you realize maybe all of reality is like that. When you look at something, the quantum equations change, right? That's been proven. What if every moment that you're taking in sensory information is a moment where, however minute, however subtle, is a moment where where a spark of self-reflection is being catalyzed, right? I really want to know what y'all think about all this. I mean, I'm just, we're about to end the video. I want to make sure I get all my notes in. Let me know in the comments what y'all think about all this. I just, like, even these videos, right? By viewing these videos and listening to me, whether you're agreeing with me or not, I'm making claims here and there throughout the various videos, and you're either agreeing or you're disagreeing. Again, me making assertions can't help but catalyze some sort of opportunity for self-awareness in those who view it. And it's not just me, it's anybody on YouTube, anybody you interact with. So to end the video, maybe reframe tarot and personality tests and psychology and the archetypes and all this, not as a way to get to the nature of objective reality, but maybe to get to the nature of yourself. Maybe each moment you interact with one of those subjects is an artificial but valid trick or hack to spark some kind of clue to self-knowledge. Let me know what you think in the comments below. See you all in the next one. Bye-bye.